Belichick lost a step to me.
I'm not going to do this.
What is up? You thought you were done with us, but you're not. Anik Squared back with your live Super Bowl preview. He is the voice of the UFC, John Anik. I am the other brother, Jason Anik.
There's another brother.
Yeah, there's another brother, Dave Anik. But Dateline, Las Vegas. Dude, I cannot believe that we're not in Las Vegas. It's such an oversight of great proportions that we're not in Vegas. Penthouse, Big Ron, Super Bowl week. Not even for the game, just for the week. Media Row, give me all of it.
What a huge missed opportunity by us. So I will peel back the curtain a little bit. We were invited to the Excel Sports Management Super Bowl party on Thursday night. We were invited to the EA Sports party, I think featuring Green Day on Friday night.
I didn't even know any of this.
Because the trip was going to be largely recreational in nature, we decided to pass. Certainly there were business opportunities, Radio Row and all of that. Would have loved to have been a part of it, especially because the Super Bowl is happening in the home of the UFC, Las Vegas, Nevada. But it is what it is. We got wheels up to Anaheim, California in a few days. Just felt like work-life balance had to be around the children.
Well, and we are presented by DraftKings Sportsbook. And I have to say, for those of us that like a little action, man, just the Super Bowl in Las Vegas. I like being in Vegas for the Super Bowl, even if the game isn't there. Anyway.
So one of the exercises that we're going to take part in today, at the end of the program, we do have some guests scheduled. Perhaps Jay in the host chair could actually set the table here in a second. By the way, you like my shirt, everybody? Can we talk about that for a second? No, we're not going to talk about that right now. One of the exercises we're going to do here on the final episode, season 2 of Anik Squared, presented by DraftKings in association with Toyo Tires, is we are going to each have $1,000 to spend on this game. I have 9 wagers right now. I probably could have had 30. So I have 9 wagers, but anytime you do want to talk about my Taylor Swift t-shirt, we can do that as well.
No, I don't want to talk about it seems like you want to talk about your Taylor Swift t-shirt.
So our executive producer, Cody Merrow, felt like I should get some Taylor Swift merchandise for this.
Oh, it's Cody's fault?
Maiden voyage of Anik Squared. Hopefully we are back for season 3, but it is amazing how put off people are by any Taylor Swift conversation. I'm not going to have a lot of it today, but let us be clear. Travis Kelce desired to date Taylor Swift. He was able to make that happen. Congratulations. But those who don't want to see her on camera or think the NFL is trying to monetize this or she's trying to monetize this, Travis Kelce was the jumping off point. So if you're trying to blame someone, probably should be blaming number 87. No?
I'm not going to talk about Taylor Swift. I can't wait to talk about the National Football League. A couple guests coming up today. So there's so much to get to with this game. And we may get to this a little bit later when we talk about our propositions, but I think about the legacy of these quarterbacks. I can't get enough of this, right? So Tom Brady, 10 Super Bowl appearances, 7-3. Okay. This is Mahomes' 4th appearance. The difference for Patrick Mahomes going 3-1 versus 2-2. I just don't think you can overstate it enough. And I was going to talk about this at more length in our final segment, but it's unbelievable to swing. If you go 2-2, all right, you got to win 5 of your next 6. You got to get there 6 more times, win 5 of 6. So to me, this for Patrick Mahomes is enormous. The legacy for Brock Purdy, fascinating to me as well.
I heard Peter King on the radio earlier this week, and the first Super Bowl that he covered was 40 years ago, and Dan Marino played in that Super Bowl. And Peter King was essentially intimating that a lot of people said to Dan Marino at the time, don't worry about it, Dan, you'll be back. And he never got back there. So your point is not lost on me, but it took Tom Brady a lot more seasons to get to a 4th Super Bowl. I just find it interesting that everybody wants to talk about Patrick Mahomes' legacy, and rightfully so. But don't you think Christian McCaffrey's trying to get a fucking chip and to build on his own legacy? Like, he'll be a Hall of Famer too. But as far as I know, Christian McCaffrey's got 0 rings right now, and certainly sure as fuck would like to get one Sunday night.
And the talk about guys, the list of Patriots, longtime Patriots with 0 rings, Wes Welker at the top of my brain. But so much to get to, and we couldn't have a better guest to join us. Ladies and gentlemen, he is the lead NFL analyst at Pro Football Focus, also co-hosts the PFF NFL podcast. What an honor for me to meet you in this manner. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the legend Sam Monson to the show. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing well, guys. I'm doing well. How about you?
Well, we'd be doing better if we were in Las Vegas, man. And obviously you've got boots on the ground, a lot of radio obligations out there. Congratulations on another banner season for you and everybody at PFF. What's the vibe right there? I guess as we sit here midday Wednesday, some of the hay's in the barn, but how's your week been so far?
Yeah, it's crazy. It's one of the busiest radio rows, media rows now that I can remember. I haven't been to that many Super Bowls. I think this is my 4th but the place is absolutely jumping now. It's only Wednesday. Usually the really big names, the really big superstars start to roll in a little bit today. Thursday is big and Friday. But it's already crazy right now. Even just finding somewhere to come on and do this show that has a little bit quiet and working internet has been a challenge.
So you've been at PFF since 2008, if I'm not mistaken. So first of all, congratulations on that, right? 15 going on 16 years. But this has to be exactly what you had dreamed about back in the day, I would think.
Yeah, it's crazy. We've been doing a lot of kind of reminiscing and looking back recently with some of the things going on at PFF. And there are a lot of those guys. I was one of the sort of original core team. Neil Hornsby set up the website. He had a tech guy called Ian Perks, who's just left actually now, start doing the real nuts and bolts. And then he needed people to come on and start helping grade players and helping collect all the data. And I was one of those first wave of people. And we became the core team that kind of set this thing up, put the wheels in motion, started to grow it. And we had these early meetings, that were sort of self-aggrandizingly called AGMs, that were just us sitting around in Neil's front room. And we kind of had all this mapped out. We could sell to teams, we could sell to consumers, to media, to everywhere. We just had no idea how we were going to get there. And somehow it's all sort of happened just bit by bit. And we had a lot of luck along the way. But it is crazy seeing us here, on Radio Row with our own big show, a huge YouTube presence and the stuff showing up everywhere.
So, Sam, when I started out as a boxing radio journalist and I first went to cover an HBO pay-per-view, I think my credential was blue and I was in a back room watching the fights. Then a couple years later, my credential was red. I was like, what does this mean? And I was in the nosebleeds. Finally, I think it was a Marco Antonio Barrera fight. I got a green credential, which meant I was ringside. Now, I'm not intending to put you on the spot. I know a lot of media comes in and then leaves before the game. When I actually covered the Super Bowl in Jacksonville, Florida in 2005 for my Boston radio show, they flew us home on Saturday. So what's happening for you on Super Bowl Sunday?
Yeah, so the first two, I said this is my fourth Super Bowl. The first two were like that, where it was here for Media Week, for Radio Row, and then flew back on the Friday, on the Saturday before the game started. The last one was the first Super Bowl that I got to cover in person in Arizona, and then this will be the second. So I have a game day credential for this. It's excited.
How did we get a guy on Anik Squared who has a game day credential? That's pretty impressive. But no, that's a huge deal, and that's not lost on me. And so we paid, I think, $9,000 for 2 tickets to see the Patriots play the Rams in the Super Bowl in 2019. And thankfully for us as New England Patriots fans, our team won that game, and it was the last Super Bowl with Bill Belichick and Tom Brady. But do you have any rooting interest in the NFL? Am I allowed to ask that question?
No, you can ask it. I'm a Minnesota Vikings fan, so I don't ever have a rooting interest in the Super Bowl. It works out quite conveniently. We lived for a year when I was a kid. My dad is a surgeon, so we moved around a lot. So when I was a kid, we lived for a year in Minnesota. And from that point on, I've been a long-suffering Vikings fan.
All right, I'm going to get to the game. And I like to gamble on the National Football League. I try and tune out noise, but there are a lot of smart guys that I inevitably tune in. So many people just the sort of narrative saying, oh, I can't go against Mahomes. I can't go against Mahomes. I'm not necessarily even trying to get a play from you, but in terms of the betting line, in terms of Mahomes still being an underdog on paper, we know what San Francisco is, but the betting line for you, does it surprise you?
Yeah, it really does. I was kind of shocked that it opened with San Francisco favorite, and I'm even more shocked that it hasn't gone the other way, that it hasn't moved against them much at all. We just saw this. We've done this 2 weeks in a row now. We put Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs as underdogs, and we just saw what happens. But the problem is all the data. Whether you're using PFF data, whether you're using everything that the bookies use, all the data to set the lines. If you use all of the season, the 49ers are a better team than the Chiefs.
Right.
But if you believe that something happens when the big lights come on and the playoffs come down and Mahomes turns into a different player, and there's evidence to say that's true, if you believe that's the real dynamic, then you have to kind of throw out the bigger sample size of data and say, look, what happened earlier in the year in the regular season doesn't mean anything. The Chiefs got there and now they turned into a different team, and playoff Mahomes has come to play. And he doesn't make mistakes. And that's the real key to all this. He has 0 turnover-worthy plays so far this season. Even just, PFF's grading is kind of the unique selling point. There's a lot of places collecting data, but we're the only people grading everything. And whether or not you believe in every single individual play grade, just by tabulating it all, right? And actually accounting for every single throw rather than trying to remember it as a sort of mental highlight reel, you pick up a lot that you don't sort of get from the stats and everything else. So any negatively graded throw, Mahomes is already the best in the NFL generally at avoiding negative throws. And those are the things that are most stable and most predictable year to year. And then when he gets to the playoffs in his NFL career, he then moves that line 4 more percentage points down. So he becomes 4 more percentage points better than anybody else once he reaches the playoffs. It does seem that playoff Mahomes is a real thing, at which point I think you have to junk a lot of the data that says the 49ers are better.
That's really interesting. As far as the kickers are concerned, sometimes for me, when I'm handicapping a game, I'm thinking head coach, quarterback, kicker. And Harrison Butker, I think, has missed 2 or 3 kicks all year in his 20 games. He connected on all 45 extra points. Perhaps you didn't expect to come on here and be asked about the kickers, but Jake Moody is a rookie. He missed 3 kicks in January alone. I know it's a controlled environment here, but should that factor into my handicap, in your humble opinion?
No, I think it absolutely does. We brought that up on our preview show as well, on our podcast, and we don't tend to talk about kickers much at all. So when we're bringing it up, it's definitely something to bear in mind. I think Harrison Butker is one of the best kickers in the NFL. He's, in the running to be the next guy down after Justin Tucker, who's just in a world of his own. But Jake Moody, the 49ers kicker, is not, and he's not been there before either. I mean, kicker is this weird position where it's not necessarily scientific. It's a little bit, it's mental, it's psychological. Those guys have to go through the fire, and everything can be on their shoulders in the most high pressured environment. Butker and the Chiefs have been there and done it before. The 49ers, they haven't even been, this far before with this guy. This is a rookie kicker. This is year 1, and he may have to have a kick that defines the outcome of this game. And as you said, he's already missed plenty of those kicks before. So I think that's a big potential swing in this game.
So I got to go here, which is a little bit off this game, but I came across that Super Bowl 49 was one of your favorite football games of all time. Certainly my favorite football game of all time. And I have this narrative in my own head about this game that, the interception that Russell Wilson threw, Malcolm Butler, shout out Brian Flores on the sideline, by the way, Malcolm, go. But anyway, we're Patriots fans if you don't know, but that circumstance for me, Russell Wilson seems to get no criticism. I hear no one talk about, he turned the football over. He did throw the interception. I understand everyone talks about calling the run, but am I on an island in terms of some culpability to the quarterback for throwing it?
So that's one of the most fascinating plays to me in NFL history.
Yeah.
A little bit. That was the first year that PFF did college football, right? So we had only done NFL up until that season. And then Chris Collinsworth bought the company and he said, what would it take to do college football as well? What would it take to add like another 750 games or whatever it was? And Neil says, nothing. We can do that. And what it really meant was killing everybody else, like all of the analysts. So we had this January, we were sort of falling behind the season as it went. So we had January to catch up and get all the college football data in when the NFL games sort of scaled down, which we affectionately nicknamed Hell Month because it was just wall to wall grading, analyzing every day of the week straight, is no sleep, the whole thing. It was a nightmare. And it finished. We literally finished that season like half an hour before that Super Bowl started. We were getting through Middle Tennessee State against Eastern Michigan or something as the final game of the year to get it all wrapped up. The game started and I'm like, I'm going to go downstairs. I'm still living in Ireland at this point. So it's like, 10 p.m. before we're anywhere near this. I'm like, I'm going downstairs. I'm sitting on the couch. I'm turning on the Super Bowl. The chances are I'm asleep by the end of the first quarter and I'm just out. That game happened. I watched the whole thing and then immediately went and wrote an article about that play at the end, rather than, we're done now, I'm done. I had to go and write an article about that thing because it was so amazing. I think the call to pass made some sense. When you look at how the defense lined up, they were sort of giving that to them. They were trying to stop the run. They were loading up. It made some sense to throw that pass. The Patriots just had it. Like, it's one of those plays where the quarterback has to kind of throw it blind and trust that the play is going to work. The pick play was what was supposed to make that route wide open. And this is Brandon Browner, doesn't get enough credit for jamming that guy 100%. On the line of scrimmage, giving Butler a clear path through to the interception. Like, breaking it up would have been incredible. And to actually catch it as well. just one of the best plays of all time. But the quarterback has to trust that pick is going to work. He is essentially throwing that blind and assuming that play is going to be successful based off alignment. So I don't think you can blame Russell Wilson for it. I don't even really think you can blame Pete Carroll too much for calling it, though I know everybody does. I think you just have to credit incredible work by Belichick to have it sort of planned out in the head, Brandon Browner for jamming the guy at the line and really making it possible, and then then Butler to have the ability to read, to react, to go right for it, and to make that pick. Just an incredible play by the Patriots across the board.
Oh, and there was so much at stake. It had been 10 years since they had won a title. And go ahead.
Sam, last thing I had for you, and you and I have been connected for years, so you obviously know of my full-time job working for the UFC. So I apologize if there's any ignorance in this question, but I'm curious the extent to which PFF has either pivoted or responded to this gambling avalanche that has come over the last several years. Now, we've been betting on sports essentially every day since 1996, but this survey released Tuesday by the American Gaming Association, 67.8 million adults, 26% of the adult population of the U.S. could combine to bet $23.1 billion on Super Bowl 58. And certainly with a lot of these young fans, the jumping off point for them is having action on these games. So has any of your coverage sort of changed in scope given all of the gambling money out there and all of the new gamblers in the world?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not just PFF, it's the whole football landscape is moving in that direction and trying to navigate how it works. And it's interesting because coming from Ireland, where gambling has been legal for decades, and the UK as well, it doesn't work there the way everybody's trying to make it work over here. You know, it's a novelty in the US. So everybody thinks that you want wall-to-wall gambling coverage. And we talk about the line and the spread and the bet to make and all those kinds of things. In reality, when you watch how TV coverage works in the UK and in Ireland, anywhere else that has legal gambling, there isn't that much gambling coverage. It's not about the bet. People don't really want that. What they want is the information on the game, on the sport, on the team. And then a very short line from that to go and bet, right? And they just want the two connected, but they want to be the ones deciding what to bet on. So I think there's a really interesting world right now where everybody is pivoting to that gambling and sort of racing to create these perfect gambling coverage, gambling shows, gambling content. But actually, that's not the way I think everybody wants it to be conveyed. Either way, you know, PFF's data, as you say, it's going to help. You know, everybody wants more information. And the more information is you're just changing the action, the call to action at the end of that data.
All right, quick one for me on the way out. So John and I, identical twins, he shaves his head all the time. I know he likes your shaved head.
Love it.
But there's some maintenance involved, right? This guy on the road is shaving it a couple times, right? So I see a little bit. So you're going to shave that dome before Super Bowl Sunday, I would imagine.
Well, so there's two things here, right? There are people that shave their head because it's a style choice, and there are people that shave their head because there isn't much of a choice in the matter. I fall into the latter category where the decision was made for me, but I fought it as long as possible because you're right, there's maintenance involved. And one of the reasons I have a beard is because I was too lazy to shave my face every day, and now I end up in a situation where I'm going to have to shave the head every couple of days. So yes, I brought the little, the sort of buzz thing that you get to run over the thing. I'm already overdue. I'll probably have to do that tomorrow. And got to keep. Although here's a story. I went on Jim Rome, his show yesterday.
Nice.
And it was up at the Bellagio. He's got an incredible set out front next to the fountains. And I'm waiting to go on. And this really nice lady comes up to me and she says, "Do you want some makeup before you go live?" And I said, "Well, that's really more of a question for you than it is for me." And she looks at me and she says, "Well, maybe just to take the shine off your head," at which point you're like, okay, go do what you need to do. I'm here for you.
Yeah. I love it. Sometimes I show up and they will ask me that same question and I'll already be completely caked in makeup from a prior television hit. And I'm like, what, does it not look like I'm completely caked in makeup right now? They're like, well, just a little anti-shine. So I've been in your world. Hey, before we let you go, my man, if you were to give our listeners like one side or total or prop that you like on the game, is there anything that piques your interest?
I do really like the Chiefs. I think that I don't think them being an underdog makes sense. I think you have to bet the Chiefs. I do think it's going to be a high scoring game as well. I know we're talking about two really good defenses, but I don't think the 49ers are going to stop this Chiefs offense. And I think the 49ers have the weaponry to keep pace. If we get a good Brock Purdy performance, I think this could end up being kind of a shootout, a high scoring game. And frankly, it's got the makings of one of the best Super Bowls we've seen.
It does.
I agree. Ladies and gentlemen, he is Sam Monson. You can find him at PFF all day long. Great to meet you. Enjoy the rest of the week, man. Take it all in. Slow it down.
Appreciate it, guys. Anytime.
Thank you, brother. Sam Monson, what an absolute legend. I did throw his Twitter handle in there on X. I don't know if it made your final rundown, but a really good guy, really good follow. And certainly for the work we do here on Anik Squared, PFF is as valuable a resource that is out there. And we very much appreciate Sam Monson, given the busy week, finding an area with good Wi-Fi and a clear shot to join us here on Anik Squared.
No doubt about it. Yeah, I should. I'm still learning from you. Right? You would have dropped
learning
that
from me,
from you in terms of hosting a show, running it down. You would have had the Twitter handle, the Instagram handle.
I think it's like PFF _ Sam or something. I mean, everything can't be emblazoned on your fucking brainstem like JTFOZ.
Speaking of JTFOZ, the field of 32 down. Oh, there he is. Right. So I had the pleasure of meeting this gentleman. Ladies and gentlemen, if you don't know, this is Joe Osborne. Joe Osborne drops knowledge daily for covers.com. But I met this man in Toronto. Yes. What an honor. I'm your biggest fan. Dude, great to have you on the program, man. This guy dripping with energy, man. I had a whole intro written for you. The one thing that I didn't get to bring up with you in person when I met you was that I also, when visiting the supermarket, very much care about purchasing the absolute freshest, farthest dated milk available.
Yes.
Any
yes.
thoughts?
I'm a big proponent on that, guys. It's something that I strongly believe in. The system is broken in life here, but this is one spot where we can get things even. And this, people make fun of me about the expiration date. Like, I'll grab the milk at the furthest. I will look at the expiration date on the thing of bread, yogurt, you name it. If you went into a restaurant and you ordered something off the menu and they said, okay, you can either have something that's been sitting around for a while, or you can have something that's extremely fresh. They cost the exact same amount. Which one are you going to pick?
Right.
The same logic applies to when you go into the grocery store. So yeah, I'm a big proponent of that. It drives my wife a little nuts sometimes, but hey, that's the way she goes. Get a little bit of extract value wherever you can.
That's right,
guys.
I think I'm getting less money in my mother's will if she could actually outlive me, but because I go over to her house, I open the fridge and I throw away all the expired condiments. It's like a twice annual exercise. There's a lot of videos, by the way, out there on expired condiments and things in refrigerators. But yeah, I agree with you. And anyone who's worked in a restaurant before, you can taste when they marry the fucking ketchups, right? Like when they pour one ketchup into another. You ever taste married ketchup? It's absolutely gross, but we got bigger things to talk about.
We do. And I know that you've had Joe Osborne on the Anik and Florian podcast in the past talking UFC. And I always love our Canadian brethren who love the National Football League. And you see the Miami Dolphins helmet. We'll get to that. Well, no, you know what? I'm going to get to that right now. So I meet Joe in Toronto, and he said, we'll talk about the game, John. That's fine. We could talk to this guy all day. But correct me if I'm wrong. You have boys age 4 and 6. Is that accurate?
That is correct, yes.
Now, quickly, I'll tell you, and I told you this in person, my girls are 7 and 10 years old, and they are required to be New England Patriots fans. As I am. That's the religion in my home. Whereas your boys they have the option to pick their football team. Is that correct?
Yes, they do. You can't pick the Jets, so there are rules. Like, there are teams that just completely stink, right? And the Dolphins do stink. If you want to go back to the 70s and talk about the undefeated season, okay, that was before I was born. But you got to be a Blue Jays fan. That was my first love as a sports fan here. My first major sports memory was Joe Carter hitting the walk-off home run to win the 1993 World Series. So that's something that will be in my heart forever. Hockey, I like the Penguins. There's a little bit of pride there. A couple cups with Mario, a couple cups with Sid the Kid. So I'll push him in that direction. But, and I say this all the time, guys, I don't know why I picked the Dolphins. I like the colors or something as a kid, and I picked them and I stuck with them. But you just can't change your favorite team because it's something you actually have to feel. I can't be, I'm a Kansas City Chiefs fan all of a sudden now. It would be fake and phony. It's something you got to feel. And I feel it with the Dolphins, the highs and lows. And there are so many highs and lows the past couple of years as a Dolphins fan. So, it's been fun kind of being in the mix a little bit. You know, they have gotten into the playoffs. They have had some really bad luck with injuries at the end of the year. There has been some choking as well. I got to be fair. I am a realistic fan. So, yeah, they make me feel alive, at least, I guess, right?
Yeah. So interesting. And John, I'll let you get in here, but talking about sort of what feeling it. I've said for years, right? A random football game or any game on TV that I'm watching, I can't control who I want to win. I have a feeling, regardless of where my action is, when I sit down to watch the Super Bowl, or maybe even before that, there will be a team that I want to win, whether it's that I really want Mahomes to achieve greatness or I want Purdy to get one. You know, I feel as though I will genuinely feel one way or another.
All right. So Dan Marino played in one Super Bowl 40 years ago and then never got back. Peter King mentioned that this week, and a lot of other people have trotted that out there as well. But I would talk about the 49ers players trying to build their legacies as well. I understand that if Patrick Mahomes falls to 2-2 in Super Bowls, that is less than ideal when you're chasing Tom Brady's 7. But there are a lot of Hall of Fame players and coaches potentially on the San Francisco side that need a chip as well.
Yeah, and I mean, there is a big case to be made that Kyle Shanahan absolutely has to get over the hump in these big games. We all remember, you guys remember 28-3, of course. And then he got back to the Super Bowl there as head coach of the 49ers. Christian McCaffrey, one of the best skill players over the past decade. They got a ton of big-time studs on their defense as well. So, yeah, there is some legacy stuff, absolutely, on both sides here. So, not really something I factor into my handicapping for the game.
Right. Joe Osborne with us here on Anik Squared. As far as your handicapping is concerned and your personal handle, whatever that is, I don't know. But when there is so much on the board, like in a Super Bowl situation, I'd imagine a guy like you is smart enough to maybe eliminate heads and tails, whereas a guy like me doesn't, right? But how do you handle the sheer volume of possible wagers that are out there?
Yeah, I tried to take advantage of some unique spots that sportsbooks are offering, because they are offering a lot more props and stuff as they would than they would for a traditional game on a Sunday when there's 16 other games that day. I also try to get down a lot of action early on things that I liked. It's funny, you guys are veterans of sports betting. It used to be that you would have to wait 3, 4, 5, 6 days for a bunch of props to start rolling out. They were available at the conclusion of the NFC Championship game this year. So bets that I like the overs on for specific players, I bet those nice and early. I do like Kansas City in the game, which we will get to. I took them on the money line plus 118. So the best of the number is gone for that. And a couple other spots that I like. Get down early. You don't really, if you like the overs, you don't necessarily want to be the guy getting all your bets in on game day. That might be a good spot to actually pound some unders, right? But get down early, try to take advantage of some unique spots.
I get concerned, the whole world, and at least a lot of the smart, sharp people like yourself that are out there, really lean Chiefs, surprise the Chiefs are the underdog. Mahomes is an underdog, I guess for the third straight week. You know, I love going against the grain from a sports gambling mentality. And I know that may be a more intangible, not looking at hard analysis. But if I'm in that 49ers locker room, I'm loving all this chatter about Kansas City.
Yeah, that's kind of my thought process, too. It's like, what's the catch here? You know, I like Kansas City. They have the better quarterback, the better big game head coach. They have the better defense. And they're the team that's in much better form right now. And that's what it comes down to for me. Like, if you add up all the stats for the regular season, it's going to be the 49ers who come out ahead of the Kansas City Chiefs, who did kind of sleepwalk through the regular season at times. But take a look at the current form of the teams. The 49ers needed a lot of breaks to get by both the Packers and the Lions on their home field. The Packers stunk in the red zone. There was missed field goals. There was drop balls bouncing off a face mask, fumbles, questionable play calling on fourth down. And this is all happening on their home field, where they allowed almost 800 combined yards to the Packers and the Lions. Meanwhile, the Kansas City Chiefs, I think they're peaking right now. They look far removed from that team we saw during the regular season. Big advantage in that the Dolphins game wasn't even close. They should have killed them, and they did. Then they go on the road into Buffalo, very difficult environment, pick up the win there. Then they go into Baltimore. Once again, a very tough environment, completely outclassed the Ravens in that game. So I think it's a team, they're peaking right now. And speaking of them as an underdog, they have been an outright winner in 16 of their last 22 games as an underdog.
Wow.
So there is that voice in the back of your head, what is the catch here? Why is this team even the underdog? I think there's a case that the wrong team is being favored, but I just think that there's so much evidence here to back the Kansas City Chiefs, who have a lot of big game experience at this point as well.
Go ahead, Johnny.
Last question from me. I'm curious where you stand on Brock Purdy in some part as it relates to a bet that I have over 12.5 rushing yards for Brock Purdy. Now, I didn't get the best number. It was 11.5. It's now 12.5. So hopefully we don't land on 12. And I understand when people play quarterback rushing totals, Patrick Mahomes oftentimes takes a knee 5-6 yards back. So you can certainly get burned on the back end. But to what extent are you a believer in Brock Purdy and potentially his ability to make a few plays on his feet this Sunday?
Yeah, I like Brock Purdy. I think a lot of the criticism is unfair that he receives. A lot of people say, well, if he was on a worse team, he wouldn't be any good. You could say that about most quarterbacks. If you surround them with crap players, well, guess what? They're not going to be a spectacular player every week. What do you want Purdy to do? Throw to the bad players on the team? He's taking advantage of the situation, right? And other guys that the 49ers had come in under Shanahan weren't able to take advantage of it up to the level that Purdy's playing at. But yeah, this is a popular play, John. A lot of people like Purdy to take off, get forced out of the pocket. Kansas City is a team that does get quite a bit of pressure on the quarterback, so I don't think he's going to have the luxury of hanging out back there. He might have to take off. We have seen this in the playoffs, and quarterbacks often in the playoffs in these games, they throw caution to the wind in terms of their health, right? So they might not slide as early as they would traditionally do during a regular season game, for example. So yeah, that's a popular play, but it is one that I like as well.
All right. I got to ask, I saw you tweeted out an interview. I think it was with Kevin Clark and Mad Dog Russo talking. Christopher Mad Dog Russo, longtime sports radio host, likes watching the football game by himself in his house, right? So John and I are trying to figure out what we're going to do for the game. We live 3 minutes apart. And that interview sort of piqued my interest a little bit because, we could get together, right? But those of us football junkies, NFL junkies, right? Sometimes watching a football game, there are a lot of Patriots games back in the day that I wanted to watch just by myself. So we're trying to figure out what we're doing, trying not to have a party. Where will you be 6:30 Eastern on Sunday?
Well, it's the same as my UFC viewing. Like I used to, when the UFC was starting to get more popular, you would get together with a group of people and you'd get the beer and the pizza and you're in a room with 12 people and you're watching the fights. But the more and more I got into it, I enjoyed, listening to the commentary, listening to the post-fight interviews. People invite me over to their places now to watch a UFC pay-per-view. I have no interest whatsoever. First of all, I'm washed up. So it's like, by the time the things end at 2:00 in the morning, I'm absolutely dead. So I'm comfortable on the couch over there, just enjoying it. And the same thing, it happened by mistake 4 years ago. With the company I was working with, we're supposed to have a big Super Bowl party, but there was a big storm that day. So I need to go home. And I ended up watching the game just in a room by myself. And I thought, this is absolutely fantastic. I can lock in to the commentary, take the commercials in. And I just really enjoyed it. And, everyone's been to that Super Bowl party, the big sports fan, where you have people in your ear, people coming and going. And it's the biggest game of the year. So I do really want to take it in. Now, I have enjoyed watching the game by myself, but if I did have a small group of like-minded friends where you could sit and watch the game and maybe get some chatter going during the commercials or whatever. But yeah, I'm a big proponent of expiration dates and watching the Super Bowl all by yourself.
Yeah, I'd love to be there to talk during the commercials because these UFC events, it's like, I got this guy in these commercials. It's like, I don't need this guy in my face on the commercial. Sorry, I may be taking money out of your pocket. Anyway, so Joe, where can they, I'm not the guy that's going to like rip you and ask you a bunch of picks, but where can, as the week continues, where can these guys watching this find all your stuff?
Yeah, search covers here on YouTube. We have a big show dropping on Wednesday night. I interviewed a bunch of my favorite people in sports media, including John Anik. A bunch of people came on to give out their best bets, so there's going to be some familiar faces there. I also opened the show with my 5 favorite bets for Super Bowl 58. You can find me on Twitter or X, whatever the hell you want to call it, and Instagram at JTFOZ. So I share all my content there. So you can check it all out this week.
I love it. He is the great Joe Osborne. Great to see you. Big fan. We got to get more stuff going with you, sir.
Absolutely, guys. A countdown to the next season starts as soon as the Super Bowl ends. So we'll collaborate some stuff on some stuff for next season, hopefully, for sure.
Thank you, buddy. Appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.
Later.
Great to have Joe Osborne on this special Super Bowl edition of Anik Squared. All right. Earlier this week on the Anik and Florian podcast, Kenny Florian and I had a chance to catch up with the tight end who has played more NFL seasons than any other, Marcedes Lewis, former Jacksonville Jaguar, former Green Bay Packer, spent last season with the Chicago Bears. As you will hear in this interview, he will talk about the Super Bowl. He will talk about his UFC fanaticism, and he will also talk about the fact that a 19th season is absolutely on the horizon for one Marcedes Lewis. Here's our conversation from earlier this week on the Anik and Florian podcast with number 89, Marcedes Lewis. All right, I'm very excited, ladies and gentlemen. Very excited because now with us, live on the Anik and Florian podcast, a man who has supported me and my career from afar for a while, big-time UFC fan, but more importantly, 18-year NFL veteran, former Pro Bowler. In 2022, he was inducted into the UCLA Athletics Hall of Fame. Marcedes Lewis is with us. My man!
What's up, my guy?
And you're giving me good energy today. How we doing?
I'm doing amazing, man. How you guys doing?
Good.
We're doing well, man. And it's probably overdue to have you on the show, to be sure. I did want to get you on during Super Bowl week. We'll get a prediction from you later, but I want to talk about Marcedes Lewis if we could. And I was looking up the pronunciation of your name last night. So I couldn't actually find footage of you saying your name, but I do have it on good authority, if my research is accurate, that it is indeed pronounced Marcedes and not Mercedes like the Benz. Is that right?
Correct.
All right. Had to get that out of the way. So
you always do a really good job with names. I feel like even just when I watch the broadcast, I feel like since I've been following the UFC, I've gotten more aware of just like different countries and names and how things are pronounced, and Pereira and Padilla. And
look at this guy.
It's pretty crazy, but you do an amazing job.
My man. Well, I was actually looking for a Sunday Night Football video of you when you guys actually say your names as the starters, but I couldn't find one. If the viewers don't know, Marcedes Lewis, no tight end in NFL history had played more than 17 seasons until you broke that record last year. You completed your 18th season as a member of the Chicago Bears. Career began as a first-round draft pick out of UCLA after you won the John Mackey Award as the nation's top tight end, taken by the Jacksonville Jaguars, 28th overall in 2006. 12 seasons in Duval County, then 5 with the Green Bay Packers. And then you just wrapped your first season with the Chicago Bears. You've talked about your health and your ability to avoid major injuries. Is there anything that you point to as the ultimate key to your longevity and health? Because obviously you're setting records, man, and there hasn't been that major injury that has, taken away a full season for you.
Yeah, if I had to be honest, man, like it's one of those things, like I don't have the blueprint, but all I know is I just always have stuck to it, whatever it's been, right? And it's about just having a routine and just figuring out how to reinvent yourself every year and every day, right? Like nobody cares about what you did last month and nobody cares about what you did last year, like it's just one of those things. So it's all about you having a process and understanding that can't nobody slow it down or speed it up but you. And for me, I've had the same routine for the last 15 years. Obviously, it's one of those things where you can take stuff out, put stuff back in. It's different for everybody. So it's definitely been a blessing and something that, I don't take for granted for sure.
So May 19th is your 40th birthday. I know your desire to win a Super Bowl is still there. I'm not looking for any breaking news in terms of your immediate future, but I believe you are an unrestricted free agent after wrapping up a one-year contract with the Bears. Is that right?
Yeah, I'm definitely going for season 19. I am a free agent as of now. And yeah, man, we'll see what happens. It's a few teams in the mix. Obviously, Being in Chicago was amazing. And especially when you win ball games, it's nothing like being in this city when you win. So it was definitely a great experience for me.
You know, when I see someone with your level of success and your longevity, your consistency, I'm always curious, to hear you speak, and you're great on the mic, after a game, hearing your perspective. Where do you get this from? Was it something you kind of learned on your own from kind of trial and error over the years of competing? Was there a family member or a mentor who kind of helped you along with this? Where do you get that, man?
I just think experience, man. Like I experience, be honest, stay true. For me, it's always been about staying true to my process, right? And being able to look in the mirror and confront that truth. And whatever that is, when you confront that truth, you experience great growth after that. And so I've just always been a guy to just keep it real, be honest about my feelings and what I'm going through. And it's always come out in the way that I intended to.
Beautiful answer, man. So what got you into mixed martial arts? And what do you remember the first event or the first fight that you saw?
Yeah, so I'll make a long story short. This was in 2011. I got voted to my first Pro Bowl, and Jay Glazer, he was already a really good friend of mine. This is back when the Pro Bowl was still in Hawaii. And so I'm at the pool, my family. Jay shows up with Chuck Liddell. Chuck Liddell walks up to me. He's like, yeah, man, I'm going to need an extra body to train with. I'm like, well, first of all, I'm not about to be a heavyweight. You can just forget that. Like, I don't know about all of that. But anyway, long story short, we get back to L.A., and this is when Jay was at one of the gyms, training. And then he was like, hey, I want you to come down to True Warrior. And True Warrior Fitness was off of Melrose and La Brea. So my first opportunity to actually train was with Chuck Liddell, and Randy Couture showed up that day. And so Chuck is teaching me striking. Randy is teaching me, the basics of wrestling, right? And then Tyron Woodley walks in. And so Tyron Woodley starts teaching me just the basics of boxing, like MMA boxing, right? And so from that day, I got addicted. I think my first 3 months, I just felt like super stiff and super just like, man, I don't know how I'm going to get better at this, but that's what kept me coming back every single day. And so 3 months turned into 6 months, right? And then 6 months turned into 9 months. And here we are 13 years removed. And, it's something that I do in the off season that's really kept me functional, my reflexes. People always ask like, man, how do you, about my blocking? Like, how do you do certain things and certain techniques? Like in the NFL, right? Everybody's big, strong, fast, long arms. Like the physical stuff is there. I think the biggest part of what MMA has taught me is just like the mental side of it, right? And being able to push through that wall when nobody else will. And, I attribute, working with Chuck and working with Glazer and working with Couture for that, because that was the basis for what I was getting ready to do for these next following years. And yeah, man, it's been a blessing. And I think after that, I ended up running into Lorenzo Fertitta, I want to say maybe 3 years after that. And he kind of, was a mentor for me and took me under his wing. And then when Lorenzo stepped away, I mean, obviously, he put me in contact with Dana. Me and Dana are really good friends. So, I'm pretty much grandfathered in at this point. And it's been a really good experience. Obviously, I have, my favorite fighters. A lot of those guys, are my boys and were my boys before they won belts and stuff like that. So it's been an honor to be a part of. Obviously, it's one of those things that, playing in the NFL, it takes so much just mental fortitude just every day, right? And knowing that your days can get monotonous and sometimes you got to reach out to different sources for your inspiration. And the UFC is one of those. And, looking up to a lot of my guys that go and get ready for camp and do weight cuts and all of that stuff. It's something that to the naked eye, you'd never understand. And it's something that I've really respected over time. And yeah, man, that's the story.
That's not bad, John. He gets introduced to the sport by Randy, Chuck, and Tyron.
Right. And you can do worse than Lorenzo Fertitta in the fucking Rolodex as well. Marcedes Lewis with us here on the Anik and Florian podcast. So actually the last event you attended, what was the last UFC live event you attended? Do you know? I know you asked me for a Wi-Fi password that night. And of course, so it was UFC 285 then.
Yeah, it was John Jones. I think it was like March 4th or something like that. But yeah, I mean, I had to make that fight regardless of what I was doing. I know I had to make that fight. And so, yeah, I flew out to Vegas for that. And then afterwards, hung out with John for a little bit and Chandler and Arthur. So, but yeah, I mean, it's whenever I can, obviously, when I'm back and forth with my team and training and stuff like that, but whatever events I can make, I'm definitely there.
So sometimes in some of these locker rooms, NFL or NBA, the UFC fandom sort of comes from one guy like Boston Celtic, Kristaps Porzingis, and then all of a sudden some of the other guys become fans. Any connective tissue with your teammates or any of your teammates watching this stuff like you are or not?
And when I was in Jacksonville the first 12 years, it was maybe like 2 or 3 guys.
Yeah.
But they didn't really get it at that point. Right. I mean, I got drafted in 2006, so it was them guys didn't even know what was going on at that point as far as the UFC is concerned. But when I got to Green Bay, it was probably about a good 5 or 6 guys that would always come to me and ask me for my analysis and who I thought was going to win fights.
I love it.
And then obviously when I got here this year, I would say maybe like 5 or 6 guys. So in those fights, like normally in those small groups on different teams that I've been on, they're like true fans, right? Like there are guys that will watch, but don't know what they're watching, don't know the rules. Guys are on the ground and grappling and the jiu-jitsu part of it. And they're like, why are they holding each other? I'm like, bro, you really have no idea. And it's way more intricate than you could ever imagine, And I think, from that side of it, what they don't understand, like I understand it in a way that it's just different. I see it different. And I mean, even just the grappling and the jiu-jitsu side of it alone is what's always kept me coming back because it's there's always a solution, right? If you can be patient and breathe and get through different positions with technique and stuff, like I enjoy watching that, because it's you guys make it look easy. Like when Ken Flo was in, I mean, you just make it look easy and it's not easy. Like there was a time where I trained with Frank Trigg and he was taking me through a series of like the triangle choke, the arm bar, omoplata. Like he was just taking me through just a series on the ground. And like just the way he was explaining it was just like, yo, it's just so much deeper. There's so much information that you're taking in that like, when I do retire, that's something that like I really want to like sink my teeth in because I'm still going to want to be competitive and I'm still going to want to do it, but obviously not be taking a pounding on my body. So I look forward to that as well.
I don't know how much forethought you gave to this interview, but perhaps you thought you'd be asked a question about competing in celebrity boxing or grappling. It would seem to me that there wouldn't be a lot of familial support for you to get punched in the head, right? I don't know that makes a whole lot of sense, even if you'd probably do quite well in that setting. But you just mentioned the grappling. I mean, could you see yourself actually competing in boxing or grappling or mixed martial arts when your NFL career's done?
I think if it was a situation where I wasn't so long in the tooth, for sure. Like if my career was the average, like 3 years, I would probably be probably in the UFC by now, right? Like I just feel like now I'm just older. So the grappling part is something that I want to do and get really familiar with and train, year round and not having to go back for season and all of that. But the boxing side of it just doesn't really interest me because I'm not trying to get punched in my face. You know what I mean? Like I just don't feel like feel like the money is there for that. You know what I mean? And considering where I would start from, right? Like I would just be an amateur. And I'm not trying to, put those miles in my body at this age.
No, that makes a lot of sense. I got a few more minutes here with Marcedes Lewis. I just fucked up your name there. You see that? So this record feels unbreakable, and maybe you don't even want to talk about it necessarily, right? But in UFC circles, we talk a lot about some of these records, and some of them feel more breakable than others. But, I went through all these high-level, high-profile tight ends, and the notion that someone would get to a 19th season, I don't know if this is just my way to compliment your career. By the way, had a touchdown on Christmas Eve, so he's still getting it done. But it's just incredible. I don't know that this record, 19th season pending, is ever going to be broken, especially at the tight end position.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, I don't think so. Like, I mean, it's one of those things, like you get so obsessed with the process, and, sometimes you forget to just take a deep breath and really appreciate yourself and your work and what you've done. And I'm very aware of what I've done, but I'm more so excited about what I'm doing, like in this moment. And I've always been present about that. And I think that is the reason why I've done what I've done, is because I'm able to synthesize things very well and compartmentalize like what matters right now, right? Like life in general is all windows, right? And you only have a certain amount of time to get things done. And I've just always been able to keep that at the forefront of my mind. Like, this is most important, right? Like, the going out, the drinking, the doing all of that, that'll always be there, like that. But if it's not conducive to me being the best player that I can possibly be, then I'm just not interested in it. And so I'm just very grateful for the opportunity to show that it can be done. Here we are again with another off season, and potentially going to get that 19th year. So I'm hype about that.
Can't wait, man.
John, this is a martial artist in an NFL uniform. I'm telling you, the way that he talks, the way that he thinks about it, I love it.
No, I'm getting the 89 jersey framed up. I don't know. I think we probably got to go with the Jacksonville Jaguars jersey right here in the home studio. But I didn't realize quite how robust your UCLA career was until I went down a rabbit hole last night. I remember your name acutely coming out of college, but I didn't quite realize just how unbelievable your collegiate career was. All right, I got two more. In terms of your UFC viewing habits, Evan Longoria, longtime Major League Baseball player, still in season at whatever hour finds time to watch all these live events. Like, what are your UFC viewing habits like, either in season or out of season?
So in season, obviously when we're traveling, I always have my iPad, right? So after meetings, normally meetings at the hotel that we're staying at normally starts when the main event starts. So it's like normally, let's just say if the main event starts at 7 Eastern, and we're East Coast time, I'll have my iPad and I'll just have it hooked up, and then I'll just rewind it. But I'm pretty much tapped into the pay-per-view. I watch all the fight nights. And whatever I don't watch, I'll watch. Like, let's say if I'm on the road and I didn't get a chance to watch it, I'll come home and then either turn on my Fight Pass, or I'll just go to ESPN2 and just watch it when I get home. Because I'm always up late after games anyway because of the adrenaline. Like, when I get home, my adrenaline doesn't run out until maybe like 3 a.m. anyway. So, and then I watch the fights, go to bed at like 2:30, 3 o'clock, and then I'm waking up at 6:30 because I can't sleep because of the adrenaline. So it's crazy how that works.
It's amazing. All right, real quick, 49ers 2-point favorites over the Kansas City Chiefs, Super Bowl 58 this Sunday. You guys did play the Chiefs this season. Forced to make a pick, or are you back in the AFC champion, or do you like San Francisco as the favorite?
It's really crazy, man, because I really like both teams. It's hard to bet against Mahomes. That guy lives in the postseason. He has equity in the Super Bowl at this point, so it's hard to bet against him. It's really going to come down to San Francisco's defense. Their defense is really good. I think in years past, they've been great. I think this year they've been trying to, figure some things out. But it's going to come down to their defense and can they keep Mahomes in the pocket and not, going crazy out there. Then I think San Francisco can get it done. I just think that as a total team, they have more to work with. But again, Kelsey, Mahomes, they've always gotten it done. So it's going to be tough, but I think I might go San Francisco this time.
All right, my man, you heard it there from the 18-year NFL veteran, Marcedes Lewis. Thank you so much for coming on, man, in the extended time. Congratulations on a truly remarkable career. And just for all the encouragement and support for the UFC fighters, for myself, we appreciate you. Wish you all the best. Can't wait to see the news when you sign for that 19th season. And anytime you want to come on the program, we'd love to have you back, brother.
No, I appreciate it, brother. Thank you guys for everything, man. And I'll be in touch, man. I'm around.
My man. There he is.
Okay, brother.
Number 89 in your program, number 1 in your heart, Marcedes Lewis with us on the Anik and Florian podcast. What a fucking legend, Ken Flo, huh?
Dude, so impressive, man. I love hearing him talk. Again, just a real intelligent human being, very down to earth, very humble. You look at everything he has accomplished, man, in that position to be in the NFL for that long. That's insane. That's something special.
So that was really a thrill for me. And one of the best things about working for the UFC in a forward-facing capacity is that I've had the chance to connect with a lot of NFL and NBA and Major League Baseball players and hockey players. And this dude is just ravenous when it comes to ingesting UFC content. So to have him on our program during Super Bowl week seemed to make a lot of sense. But man, he earned a return invitation. That dude's the goods.
No question about it. And he's one of those guys where because of the longevity, we were kids and he was a kid. We grew up watching him. 2006 first round draft pick, Jacksonville Jaguars, Duval County. All right. It's going to be fun. The NFL season is almost done. It was a tough pill to swallow for the fans, but the best weekend is still right in front of us with Super Bowl 58. You can be sure our whole team at Anik Squared will have action all over the board, and we want to give you a little juice to get in on the action as well. Thanks to our title sponsor, DraftKings Sportsbook, an official partner of the NFL. DraftKings is excited to bring all new customers an easy way to join in on the action. All customers download the DraftKings app, use our promo code SQUARED, that is SQUARED, bet just $5 and boom, $200 in bonus bets hit your account instantly. So don't wait, get some skin on the biggest game of the year and download the DraftKings app now. Use your $200 in bonus bets on DraftKings same game parlays, combine multiple bets together from the same game for a shot at an even bigger payout. Sports betting not yet available in your state. Don't worry, you can still join in on all the fun with DraftKings Daily Fantasy and have a shot to win cash prizes. So let's go. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Sign up using promo code SQUARED. Bet just $5 on any wager and watch as the $200 in bonus bets light up your screen. Only at DraftKings Sportsbook. The crown is yours. All right, so it's time for us to now rifle through some of our wagers on this game. We were each given $1,000. I just want to set something up very quickly, if I could, on the front end of that. So last meeting between the 49ers and the Chiefs, October of 2022, it was actually the first game in which Brock Purdy threw a pass in the NFL, came on for Jimmy Garoppolo in a game the Chiefs won 44-23. Niners actually had more first downs in that game, but I thought that was kind of a neat nugget, even though there's nothing from that game that you can actually extract. One thing that I think is interesting. The Chiefs have played 20 games this year. Only 4 times has Patrick Mahomes thrown for more than 300 yards. And in those games, the numbers 305, 306, 305, and then 424 against the Chargers. So one 400-plus yard passing game of the year, and the few that were over 300 yards were barely. Juxtaposed against his 2022, Mahomes had 11 games in which he threw for more than 300 yards, and a lot of those were robust totals. So the total right now for this game, Patrick Mahomes passing yards in the Super Bowl, is set at 260 and a half. And I'm inclined to go over, but I just thought it was interesting just how prolific a passing attack they had a year ago, at least statistically, relative to this season. Interesting stuff. Before we get to the props, just indulge me slightly more on the legacy and these Super Bowl records and for these quarterbacks. I recently flipped on the greatest basketball player of all time, right? I was at the UFC basketball game, UFC fight, International Fight Week last week. And some just out of the blue, someone comes up to me with a video camera on my face, asked me LeBron or Jordan, right? And I was always Michael Jordan, but I said LeBron in the moment. And I've heard people argue back with me, well, Jordan's 6-0 in the finals, right? Okay, so yeah, Montana 4-0, whatever it may be, but Brady 7-3, right? I can't state this enough for Patrick Mahomes. If he wants to get where he wants to go, like this is an enormous one. It's tough to get back there. Patriots in some of their best seasons didn't win Super Bowls. I have also heard about just the Brock Purdy thing that, he's a 49ers quarterback forever if he wins this game. Do you know what I mean? For the rest of his career. But if he doesn't win this game, is he still that guy? I just think it is so fascinating. Kyle Shanahan, there's so many moving parts, a rematch. I just love this game. And I know we're going to move into the bullshit with propositions, but there's so much meat with this matchup.
Well, and my proposition bets aren't bullshit. I do have a $12 wager at the end on tails, but everything else is rooted in not bullshit and actual research. But there's a lot of different ways that you could attack the board. And I also don't agree that if Brock Purdy wins this game, that he is going to be the San Francisco 49ers quarterback for the rest of his career. You know, I mean, Jared Goff got the Rams to a Super Bowl against the New England Patriots. And had he won that game, I don't think he'd still be in LA necessarily.
But he didn't. When you win a Super Bowl, it's a different conversation.
All right. So we have $1,000 with which to wager. So I am going to rifle through. I have 9 selections right now on DraftKings Sportsbook. One that I did not place a bet on is the player to have the first rush attempt of 10 yards or more. Christian McCaffrey, the favorite at -120. Isaiah Pacheco plus 225. I think McCaffrey's going to be the first to have a rush of 10 yards or more, but I didn't have enough money left. All right, here we go. First bet for me, $118 to pay 100 on the Kansas City Chiefs plus 2. Certainly that opinion aligns with our 2 sharp handicappers that were on the program today. Next selection for me, $100 to pay 135 plus 135 on Christian McCaffrey to score a first half touchdown. We also have a $50 wager.
Hold on a second. Are you just rifling through everything?
Yeah, you can interrupt me at any time.
Yeah, I'd like to interrupt you. All right. Because I got some Christian McCaffrey action there. And so just to confirm, so far you got Chiefs plus 2 and then McCaffrey first half touchdown.
McCaffrey to score a first half touchdown, which is plus 135.
Okay. So I bet on McCaffrey to be the first touchdown score for the 49ers. First team touchdown score, right? Not in the game.
Yeah.
Plus 165.
Dickhead. You can get to all your bets when I'm done. Okay.
Oh, that's how you want to do it? You want to just rifle
through
yours?
Dude. Do it. Like I'm in a good flow. I'm trying to give the listeners and the viewers what my plays are, you know?
Man. But like the flow is only as good as like that with a Taylor Swift shirt. Like how good is the flow with the Taylor Swift shirt?
Bro, you can honestly interrupt me at any time, but I'm just going to rifle through these. I have $100 on Christian McCaffrey plus 135 to score a touchdown in the first half. I'm taking a long shot on Deebo Samuel to win the MVP. I know historically it goes to a quarterback. But I just think the electric nature of his talent is such that there's some value on him at 20 to 1. $50 on Deebo Samuel to be the MVP to pay $1,000. The aforementioned prop on Patrick Mahomes passing yards. I think they're going to realize success through the air. 115 to pay 100 on Mahomes over 260 and a half passing yards. Bet number 5. Also -115, $115 on Patrick Mahomes. Under half an interception. I don't believe Patrick Mahomes is going to throw an interception unless it is on a batted ball. Bet number 6, back to Christian McCaffrey. -145, so a little bit of a heavy price here, but 145 to pay 100, over 33 and a half receiving yards for Christian McCaffrey. Big bet, my biggest bet, $230 to pay 200. Brock Purdy over 12 and a half rushing yards. Then we have 115 to pay 100 on Christian McCaffrey to rush for more than 3.5 yards on his first rushing attempt. And we close it out with a $12 bet on the coin toss, and we're going tails.
So that's how you want to do that. Just rifle through all this stuff. So you have Deebo to win the MVP, but the Chiefs to win the game.
Right? Yes. But largely a lot of my action is on Christian McCaffrey to play well, to have a huge game, and on Patrick Mahomes to play mistake-free football and realize more success through the air than maybe they have for much of the year.
Yeah, I mean, I like a lot of your action, but, you know, talking about being in a flow when it's like you basically just like threw up out of your mouth at me all these propositions. So mine are in a little more organized fashion.
Outstanding. Right? We love your prep. I mean, you've been prepared all year.
But so the San Francisco side, obviously we want to have propositions on both sides of the game. So my San Francisco action, right? So Christian McCaffrey plus 165, first team touchdown score, meaning he'll score the first touchdown for his team, 100 to pay 165. Christian McCaffrey Super Bowl MVP plus 475.
Wow.
70 to pay 332.50. I just sort of think that if San Francisco gets it done, that maybe it's him, and he sort of gets, if he gets that first touchdown, and everyone think what they think about Purdy. I don't know.
I think there's a lot of value on Christian McCaffrey to win the Super Bowl MVP.
I also have another bet on a Chiefs player to win the MVP that I'll get to, but I'm staying on my 49ers action. My largest wager, $300. Deebo Samuel plus 130, anytime touchdown score. He can do it rushing or receiving. It's like he's been banged up a little bit. I almost went with George Kittle here. It's like Deebo Samuel in the Super Bowl. I just think he's going to score a touchdown. So I like that plus 130 as my big play, 300 to pay 390. I fucking, excuse my language, I hate to say it. I guess I do lean Chiefs to win the game. So that's going to dictate a lot of my remaining action moving forward. So Kelsey to score and the Chiefs to win, plus 230. Right. I think Mahomes looks for him. Okay. Taylor Swift is there. They want to win the game, but Mahomes is so good that I do believe he has the luxury at times of like choosing who scores. This might have been more true back in 2022, but I absolutely think that Kelsey's going to be a big part of this if they win. I think he's going to be looking for him at the goal line. So I like that. Kelsey to score and the Chiefs to win, sort of getting plus 230 on the game. I just feel like Kelsey's going to get in the end zone if they win the game. So that's 100 to pay 230 there. Because I like the Chiefs, I'm doing the halftime full-time. Chiefs plus 195. I have them leading at the half and winning the game. For me, I do think there's a chance that maybe things get a little shaky with the 49ers. I do. However, I'm not going to bet a lot on this game straight up one way or another. So plus 195, that's 100 to pay 195. Chiefs to lead at the half and win the game. My final two bets. Isaiah Pacheco over 65.5 rushing yards, 230 to pay 200. Pretty large wager. I just think that the 49ers are weak against the run. I think that they find a way to do this. So Isaiah Pacheco over 65.5 yards.
I like that.
230 to pay 200. So that's another large play for me. And with the 251st pick in the 2022 NFL Draft, the Kansas City Chiefs select Isaiah Pacheco, running back, Rutgers, 28-1 to win the MVP. He scored touchdown in 3 straight games, carried the load. We know this Chiefs teams you alluded to before is not this passing juggernaut. They're all about their defense. If Isaiah Pacheco breaks one and maybe scores a couple touchdowns, I don't think it's crazy for him to be the MVP. So that's 28-1, another 100 there to pay 2,800. That wraps up 1,000 for me.
Couple other things I'll say on the way out. I did place a bet on George Kittle to be the Super Bowl MVP at the beginning of the playoffs at 150-1.
Wow.
So that's 20 to pay $3,000, probably 20 to play zero, but I do think George Kittle's going to have a good game. And, I'm probably going to end up on a lot of Deebo Samuel props, right? Over 58.5 receiving yards, over 4.5 receptions right now is juiced to minus 135. But I think we're aligned on Deebo Samuel having a big game. And it is going to be a fascinating Super Bowl. It feels chalky a little bit. I would have liked to maybe have seen Lamar Jackson in a Super Bowl to just maybe change my overall appetite for the game. But to Sam Monson's point off the top of the show, I think we could be staring down the barrel at one of the all-time great Super Bowls.
And regardless of what the Kansas City Chiefs may have accomplished during the regular season, right? The absolute class of the American Football Conference, you beat Miami, Buffalo and Baltimore. Regardless of what Miami was, regardless of that game being in a deep freeze or whatever it was, you beat the 3 best teams in the AFC to get here. I just think it's house money in a lot of ways. I will say on the way out, we're in a situation where John had some nice action on San Francisco to win the Super Bowl at plus 470 and plus 280 in one of our accounts. So we're dancing this hedge game right now where we're sort of tying Kansas City to a lot of our action right now. I've bought it up to 3.5 points with Kansas City tied to a lot of action. But the more I like Kansas City in the game, the more I want to get that hedge almost to possibly even wash it out. So lots to talk about. Anything else before we close season 2? Anik, motherfucking Squared.
No, I just want to thank everybody. DraftKings Sportsbook and Toyo Tires are great partners. Thanks to everybody for tuning into the show. I think we went 32 games combined above 500, picking 5 games against the spread every week for the 18-week NFL regular season. And as God is my witness, I hope we're back for season 3. But thank you for all your effort. Of course, our executive producer, Cody Merrow. And that's it, man. I got to go watch some girls soccer and try to not get canceled on that soccer pitch right now. So
we appreciate you all being with us. For my brother, the voice of the UFC, John Anik, my name is Jason Anik, and Cody Merrow at the helm, our wonderful executive producer. We appreciate you as always. Hope to see you back for season 3 of Anik Squared. We appreciate you. Enjoy the big game. Peace.
Not this again.
All right, Dom, bit of a slow start for Griffin. Give him some time. Forrest is making his approach here, Dom.
He still hasn't found his flow.
Oh, things are heating up. Oh, it's on now.
Unbelievable.
Forrest goes for the left hook. Oh, he's showing off a lot of stamina.
Not letting up.
So where are we headed, Forrest?
Really, guys? Get a hobby.
You are the hobby.